Just a teen sniper? Great. Maybe she can carry water for the real operators. The SEALs laughed before Maya Reeves even reached the desert staging line. She was 19, quiet, and smaller than every man standing beside the armored trucks, with a sun-faded cap pulled low over her eyes and a rifle case that looked too plain for a classified endurance trial. To them, she was a publicity mistake. A young female marksman invited so the cameras could call the event inclusive. Nobody noticed the old desert map folded inside her sleeve, or the black raven pin hidden beneath her collar. By sunset, every SEAL on that range would know exactly why she had been sent. The Desert Talon trial was held once a year at Fort Armitage, a remote military testing ground buried deep in the Arizona desert, where heat rose off the sand like invisible fire and distance became a weapon all by itself. The course was designed for elite operators: long-range marksmanship, navigation without GPS, target identification, heat endurance, and tactical decision-making under exhaustion. Most soldiers never received an invitation. Most who did wished they had not. Maya arrived in the last transport, sitting alone near the back with her rifle case across her knees. Around her, SEAL candidates joked loudly, trading stories about deployments, cold water training, broken bones, and instructors who had made grown men cry. No one asked Maya anything. They only glanced at her, then looked away with the same expression people use when they see someone standing in the wrong line. Chief Petty Officer Dane Maddox noticed her first when the bus doors opened. He was 36, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, and proud enough to make confidence feel like a uniform. He stepped down, turned, and saw Maya lifting her rifle case from the aisle. He smiled. "Careful with that, kid. This is Summer Camp?" A few SEALs laughed. Maya stepped off the bus without answering. Her boots hit the gravel lightly, and she adjusted the strap of her small pack before walking toward the check-in table. At the front, Lieutenant Commander Eric Shaw reviewed the participant list with a tablet in one hand. He looked up when Maya approached. "Name Maya Reeves." Shaw scrolled. His brow tightened. "Reeves." He stopped at her file, then glanced at her again. "You re-19? "Yes, sir." "Civilian Junior Marksman Program?" "Formerly, sir." Maddox, standing nearby, laughed under his breath. "Formerly. That's adorable." Shaw gave him a brief look, then returned to the tablet. "You understand this is a joint special operations trial, not a competition range?" "Yes, sir." "You understand there are no youth divisions here?" "Yes, sir." Maddox leaned closer. "You understand the desert doesn't care about trophies?" Maya looked at him for the first time. "Neither do I." The answer was calm, almost too calm, and that made the men around her quiet for half a second. Then Maddox grinned. "We'll see." The staging area looked more like a forward operating base than a training site. Rows of tan tents stood beside armored vehicles, water towers, communications equipment, and weapons tables covered in rifles. Optics, rangefinders, and navigation gear. In the distance, the desert course stretched beyond 3 ridgelines and disappeared into glare. A media unit stood behind a marked boundary, filming the arrival of the operators. The Army wanted promotional footage of elite cooperation. The Navy wanted proof its teams still dominated harsh terrain. Nobody expected the youngest person on site to become part of the story. Maya placed her rifle case on the equipment table. Sergeant Lionel Parks, the weapons inspector, opened it and paused. The rifle inside was clean but simple. No oversized optic. No sponsor-ready modifications. No sleek chassis system. Just a practical bolt-action platform with worn edges, taped sling points, and a faded strip of cloth tied around the stock. Parks looked unimpressed. "This your rifle?" "Yes." "No backup glass?" "No." "No digital ballistic unit?" "No." Maddox stepped closer. Enjoying himself now, she brought a farm rifle. One SEAL laughed. Another said, "Maybe it shoots cans real good." Parks lifted the rifle and checked the chamber. "This trial includes moving targets past 1,600 yards, unknown distance engagements, and heat distortion." "You sure this is what you want to run?" Maya nodded. "It's what I know." Maddox shook his head. "That might be the saddest answer I've heard all week." Maya reached for the rifle. Before handing it back, Parks noticed something taped beneath the stock, almost hidden under the sling. A small black raven pin. Old metal, scratched edges. He frowned. "Where'd you get this?" Maya's fingers closed around the rifle before he could touch the pin family. Parks looked at her face, then decided not to ask more. Cleared. The first humiliation came during team assignments. The trial required 4-person elements. Maya was placed with Maddox, Petty Officer Caleb Vance, a younger SEAL named Torres, and Captain Rachel Sloan, the Army liaison officer assigned to observe their group. Maddox looked at the roster and laughed openly. "No." Shaw looked up. "Problem and not babysitting." Maya stood 3 feet away, listening. Shaw's voice remained flat. You rerunning element 3 as assigned. Opt. Maddox pointed at Maya. She's 19. She qualified on paper? Yes. That does mean she belongs in the desert with seals. Maya adjusted the strap on her pack. Captain Sloan, who had been watching quietly, said, Chief, if she qualified, she runs. Maddox turned to her. With respect, Captain, qualification scores don't carry heat casualties, Sloan replied. Neither does arrogance. A few soldiers nearby reacted, but Maddox only smiled, the kind of smile that promised payback later. The first phase began at 900, a 6-mile desert movement to Observation Point Alpha, carrying full packs and weapons, followed by target identification from a concealed ridge. The heat rose quickly. Within 20 minutes, sweat darkened collars. Within 40, the joke stopped. Maya stayed at the rear of the formation, not because she struggled, but because Maddox had ordered her there. Best place for you, he said. If you fall, we want to trip over you. She didn't answer. At mile 3, Torres began drifting too far right, following a dry wash that looked like the main route but bent toward unstable ground. Maya noticed the cracked crust near the surface and the way small stones had collected along one edge. Don't step there, she said. Torres glanced back. What? Maddox snapped. Keep moving. Maya's voice stayed even. That wash collapses under weight. Maddox laughed. You a geologist now? Torres stepped forward. The ground broke under his boot. He dropped knee-deep into loose sand and cursed as his pack pulled him sideways. Vance grabbed his arm. Maddox turned sharply, anger flashing across his face, not at the danger but at the fact that Maya had been right. She stepped closer, pulled a short strap from her pack, and tossed it to Vance. Loop his shoulder. Don't pull from the wrist. Vance followed her instruction before Maddox could object. Torres came free with a scraped shin and a bruised ego. Maddox looked at Maya. You saw that? Yes. And waited until he stepped in? I warned him. Sloan, walking behind them, wrote something in her notebook. Maddox saw it. His jaw tightened. When they reached Observation Point Alpha, the first target identification drill began. Heat shimmer bent everything. The targets were hidden among rocks, brush, shadow, and false silhouettes painted to fool impatient eyes. Maddox took the lead. 3 targets, he said. Ridge left, broken wall center, vehicle frame low. Vance agreed. Torres nodded. Maya looked through her scope for less than 10 seconds. There are 4, Maddox sighed. Here we go. She lowered the scope. The 4th is behind the broken wall, reflection off glass, not metal. Maddox leaned into his optic again. I don't see it. You're looking at the wall, that's where you said it was. I said behind it, Torres muttered. Kid S got attitude. Maddox marked 3 targets on the tablet and submitted. The evaluator S screen flashed. Incomplete. 1 target missed. Captain Sloan looked at me. Show me. Maya pointed through the scope, adjusting it a fraction. Sloan leaned in. A long pause followed. Then she said, There it is. Maddox's face hardened. The second humiliation came less than 5 minutes later. Instead of admitting the mistake, he turned to the evaluator. Her angle was different. Maya said nothing. Maddox continued. Louder. She was off position. If she saw anything, it was luck. Sloan looked from him to Maya. Maya closed the scope cover. He submitted the call. Maddox stared at her. She didn't he defend herself. She didn't he explain. That restraint bothered him more than an argument. By noon, the trial had moved to the first live-fire lane. Each element had to engage 3 steel targets at unknown distance after a movement drill. Maddox hit 2 of 3. Vance hit 1. Torres missed his first, adjusted, then clipped the second. Maya was last. Maddox stood behind her. Try not to embarrass the element. She settled behind her rifle. The cloth strip on the stock shifted in the wind, revealing the edge of the black raven pin again. Captain Sloan noticed it this time. Her eyes narrowed, not in recognition, but curiosity. Maya looked past the target before looking through the optic. Then she fired. 1 shot. The first steel plate rang. She cycled the bolt. Second shot. Second ring. Third shot. A longer pause. The desert wind changed. Maddox whispered she lost it. Maya shifted half an inch. Third shot. Ring. The evaluator looked up from his tablet. 3 for 3. The line went quiet. Vance stared at the target area. Torres muttered, no way. Maddox's smile vanished completely. Maya opened the bolt, cleared the rifle, and stood. She did not look proud. She looked relieved, as if hitting the targets had not proven anything. As if it had only confirmed something she already feared she still knew how to do. Captain Sloan approached her after the drill. That raven pin, she said quietly. Family, you said? Maya's hand moved to the stock. Yes, ma'am. Military family? Maya looked toward the ridgeline. Something like that. Before Sloan could ask more, an alarm tone sounded from the command tent. The next phase had been moved up. Desert Trial Phase 2. Solo navigation under heat stress. No teams, no guidance, no GPS. Each participant would cross 8 miles of open desert. Identify 3 hidden markers and reach the extraction point before the cutoff time. Maddox walked past Maya and leaned close enough that only she could hear him. Luck runs out when nobody is watching. Maya looked at the desert ahead. Then I guess we'll find out what's left at the command tent. Lieutenant Commander Shaw unfolded the sealed navigation packets. One envelope was marked with a black raven symbol. He stopped when he saw it, then quickly placed it at the bottom of the stack. But Captain Sloan saw his hand pause, and across the staging area, Maya saw the raven too. For the first time all day, her expression changed. Not fear. The black raven symbol on the sealed envelope caught Maya's eye for less than a second. Then Lieutenant Commander Shaw quietly slid it beneath the others. Nobody else seemed to notice, except Captain Rachel Sloan. She watched Shaw's hand hesitate, watched him tuck the envelope away, then watched Maya's expression change for the first time all day. Not surprise. Recognition, only for a heartbeat, then it was gone. The briefing continued. The next phase is solo navigation, Shaw announced. No GPS, no radios, no spotters. You'll receive one map, one compass, and one objective. Find all 3 checkpoints and reach extraction point Echo. Before sunset, he paused. If you miss the deadline, you're finished. The candidates lined up. Shaw handed out sealed envelopes one by one. When Maya stepped forward, he stopped again. He looked at her, then at the black raven envelope still resting beneath the stack. Finally, he handed her an ordinary white one. Good luck, Captain. She accepted it. Thank you, sir. As she turned away, Captain Sloan noticed the disappointment that flashed across Shaw's face. It lasted less than a second, but it was there. The horn sounded. 24 competitors scattered across the desert in different directions. Within minutes, the base disappeared behind waves of heat. The desert became silent. Maya unfolded her map while walking. The route looked simple. Too simple. She stopped, kneeled beside a flat rock, studied the paper again, then quietly folded it closed. This isn't today's map, nobody. Heard her half a mile away. Even Cross laughed while jogging across open ground. See you at the finish line, Grandma. He disappeared over the ridge. Maya never looked up. Instead, she turned 90 degrees away from the marked route. 3 miles later, Captain Sloan watched the GPS tracker inside the command tent. Commander. Victor Hale stepped beside her. What is it? Candidate 21. He looked at the screen. Maya, her blue tracking dot, had left the assigned route completely. Shaw frowned. She's lost. Captain Sloan shook her head. No, she changed direction deliberately. Another officer laughed. Maybe she's trying to get home. Nobody else laughed. Commander Hale quietly stared at the screen, then asked, when was this map updated? Silence. Shaw checked the file 6 months ago. Hale looked toward the satellite monitor. The flood. Everyone froze. Captain Sloan understood first. The canyon moved. Out in the desert, Maya climbed a narrow sandstone ridge. Instead of entering the marked valley below, she stopped once, picked up a handful of dry sand, let it fall through her fingers. Then kept walking. Behind her, 2 candidates appeared. Cross and Hawkins. Cross smiled. Lost? Maya didn't answer. He caught up. Funny. The finish line's that way. He pointed toward the valley. She kept walking. Cross stepped in front of her. Deaf? She looked at the valley. The ground isn't stable, he laughed. According to who? The mountain. Hawkins rolled his eyes. Oh, great. Now she's talking to rocks. Cross stepped aside dramatically. Be my guest. We'll wave when you get rescued. They jogged downhill. Maya watched them disappear into the canyon, then quietly whispered, Don't. 20 minutes later, Commander Hale stood inside the operations tent, watching live drone footage. Everything looked normal. Until the drone operator leaned forward. Sir. The screen shook. Dust exploded upward from the valley floor. The drone zoomed in. The entire western trail had collapsed. Captain Sloan inhaled sharply. That's... Commander Hale finished the sentence. Exactly where she refused to go. Shaw immediately grabbed the radio. All candidates, stop movement. Static. Then confused voices. Cross's voice suddenly burst across the channel. Mayday, mayday, we've got to collapse. The room exploded into motion. Maps unfolded. Helicopter crews were alerted. Rescue teams geared up. Commander Hale looked once more at Maya's tracking beacon. She hadn't stopped. She hadn't even turned around. She was already climbing the alternate ridge. Rescue helicopters lifted off. Captain Sloan watched the monitor. Should we recall Candidate 21? Commander Hale slowly shook his head. No, why? She's following the only safe route. The word surprised everyone, including Shaw. You know that? Hale looked toward the mountains. I've seen that route before. By late afternoon, only 9 candidates remained on schedule. Cross and Hawkins had been airlifted after the collapse. 3 others had withdrawn. Several more wandered completely off course. Maya reached checkpoint 2 alone. Waiting beside the marker stood an elderly civilian evaluator. White beard, old army hat, clipboard. He looked up as she approached. Name? Maya Reeves. He marked the sheet, then looked at her rifle. Haven't seen one of those in years. She smiled politely. It still works. So do you. She paused. You know me? He shook his head. No, I knew someone who carried a rifle exactly like that. He looked toward the stock then, toward the tiny black raven pin. His pen stopped moving. Where did you get that? Maya's fingers instinctively covered the pin. My father. The old evaluator became very still. What was his name? She hesitated, then answered. David Reeves. The clipboard slipped from his hand. It hit the ground. Neither of them moved. Finally, the old man whispered, Ghost leader. Maya closed her eyes, only briefly, when she opened them again. The evaluator was standing at attention, not because of her rank, because of the name. He slowly saluted, I thought. All of you were gone. Maya returned the salute. We almost were. Back at command. Captain Sloan looked at the tracking screens. Candidate 21 had reached checkpoint 2 nearly 40 minutes ahead of every remaining competitor. Commander Hale quietly smiled. Shaw noticed you expected this. No, I hope the radio suddenly crackled. Rescue Team Alpha. Commander, we found something. Hale grabbed the microphone. What? The reply came slowly. We found an old observation post. Silence then. Sir, there's a faded call sign carved into the rock. Hale closed his eyes. What does it say? The voice answered. Ghost 7. The operations tent fell completely silent. Captain Sloan slowly looked toward Maya's moving blue tracking beacon, then back toward Commander Hale. He whispered one sentence. So she really is the last one.